Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Allahumma salli wa sallim ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi fi kulli lahadatin abada adada ni'amillahi wa afdalihi. Allahumma atina min ladunka rahma wa alimna min ladunka ilma subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. نوينا تعلم وتعليم وتذكر وتذكير والنفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم ودعاء إلى الهدى ودلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى مع لطف وعافية برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم إنا نسألك العلم لدني مشرب الصافي الهاني يا وهاب يا غني. اللهم إنا نسألك العلم لدني ومشرب الصافي الهاني يا وهاب يا غني. اللهم إنا نسألك العلم لدني ومشرب الصافي الهاني يا وهاب يا غني. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم ألهمنا علما نفقه به أوامرك ونواهيك وارزقنا فهما نعرف به كيف نناجيك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم اللهم ألهمنا اللهم ألهمنا علما نفقه بأوامرك ونواهيك وارزقنا فهما نعرف كيف نناجيك يا أرحم وارزقنا فهما نعرف به كيف نناجيك كيف نناجيك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم إنا نسألك فهم النبيين وحفظ المرسلين وإلهام الملائكة المقربين في عافية يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم أغننا بالعلم وزينا بالحلم وأكرمنا بالتقوى وجملنا بالعافية يا أرحم الراحمين. آمين. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم إنا نستودعك ما قرأناه وما نقرأه في هذا المجلس وما قبله وما بعد فاحفظه علينا حتى ترده إلينا وقت احتياجنا إليه يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم أكرمنا بنور الفهم وأخرجنا من ظلمات الوهم وافتح لنا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا حكمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. آمين. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم يا من نقل الأمور كلها بيده وإليه رجع الأمر كله يا فتاح يا عليم يا فتاح يا عليم يا فتاح يا عليم افتح علينا فتحا قريبا. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي وسل لساني واهدي قلبي وافعل كذلك بأحبابي أبدا ورزقنا كمال فتوح العارفين والفقه في الدين مع كمال الإخلاص والصدق واليقين والعافية والغنى والنصر والحفظ والاندفاع وخير الدارين وعلوم الأولين والآخرين. آمين. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. والحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Okay. Now, so the last time round we were here, is it? Okay, najasa, right? For the clothing and the body and the place of worship to be clean and free of najasa. We finished that then. We finished about aurat. We finished about najasa, of the conditions of the prayer. Right, the validity of the prayer, the conditions of the validity of the prayer. He has put here four. Right, in this book, he put four conditions of the prayer. There are actually more than four. There's actually definitely more than four. Right, but for for a beginner book and basic book, right, so they will put in four first. Right, then later on, as you learn, into deeper texts, right, they will put in further conditions of the prayer. Right, so we have finished up till this part, right, on the najasa. Right, so what is najasa? Anything that is disgusting, that is in the language and in the Sharia, anything that is discussing that prevents the validity of prayer. And the najasas that we know in our religion, right? The first one will be feces, and the feces of any animal. Okay, any animal whatsoever, regardless, whether it's insects or whether it is human, mammals, reptiles, doesn't matter, right? Any form of creature, right? Excretions from the creature would be najis. Same thing with urine. Same thing with blood. Blood from any forms of animals and any forms of blood. Of course, there is an exception of musk. Musk actually comes from the pus of deers, and that is the one that is declared to be an exception to the rule. Right, so it is not it's not najis. Right, the pus that comes from the deer is not najis if it's a form of musk. And then vomit and all forms of vomit, drinkable alcohol, which is basically ethanol. Right, ethanol. Okay, and then number 6 would be dead animals. Right, dead animals. Right, bracket unslaughtered. Unslaughtered, or unslaughtered, you can say not non-halal. Right, so unslaughtered and non-halal animals. Right, so if an animal just dies, right, animal dies, it's a carcass. Right, carcasses, of course, with the exception of dead animals, with the exception of human beings, locusts, and sea animals. Right, with the exception of human beings, locusts, and fish. I mean, animals from the sea. Right, so dead fish is not najis. Dead fish is halal for us to consume. Right, dead locusts is also not najis. Right, they are halal for us to consume. Of course, dead human beings, even if it's a kafir, they are not najis. Right, they're tahir, they're clean. The human being is clean. Right, so even a dead human being is not najis. Right, the human being itself lah. Besides that, all dead animals are najis. Right, so if you have like a dead fly that's stuck to someone's foot, right, and then they pray with a dead fly stuck on their foot, their prayer is not valid. Right, to do that. The story of one of the mashayikh, right, who every Friday he will wash his turban. Right, so he will remove. And if you know how turbans are tied, right, it's an entire it's effort to put on a turban, entire turban. Right, so the length of a cloth is very long. Right, you can go across the entire room if you pull out a turban cloth, right, and then to tie it up, right, it takes some time to tie it up nicely. Right, so usually for men, when they wear turbans, they tie the turbans on their sungkok, right, on the kalansawar, right, on the sungkok, and they don't actually remove the turban except like once a week or even once a month. Right, some of them don't even remove. They just leave it there until it gets dirty. Then they remove it and then they will wash it. Otherwise, you will not find them removing it. Right, they will just leave it there. So on the songkok lah, right? So it will stay in its position. It will not be untied, right? So to this the sheikh, every Friday he has a habit, right, of removing his turban, and because he has a habit of removing his turban, every Friday, right, to wash his turban. There was one Friday where he removed a turban and there was like some gassing going around in the house, or somebody was spraying insecticide in the house, right? So when he was doing that, when he removed his turban, someone was spraying insecticide in the house. So then he didn't realize, but there was a dead fly that went in between the cloth of his turban, and then he put on his turban. He tied up his turban after that. Right, so the following Friday, when he removed his turban and he untied his turban, he found a dead fly inside the turban, which means that every single prayer he prayed with the turban. Like, he will wear the turban and he will pray with the turban every single prayer. So the entire week, from Friday to Friday, alhamdulillah, he checked once a week. Right, so from Friday to Friday, he saw the fly, the dead fly at the end of the week. Of the following week, he saw the dead fly, and then so therefore, the ruling on him is every single one of his prayers that he prayed with that turban is not valid, because he was carrying najis the whole time. So he had to qada, and he had to qada the entire week of prayers, because of the dead animal that was in his turban. Right, so dead animals, unslaughtered, non-halal, the essence of human beings, locusts and fish. Number 7, severed parts of animals that are not halal to be eaten if they were slaughtered. Right, so number 7 is severed parts. Right, severed part of severed. Right, severed parts of an animal that is not halal to be eaten. Right, so like for example, cats. Right, cats are not halal animals. No matter, even if you slaughter a cat, you cannot eat a cat. Right, it's not halal. So severed parts. Right, so for example, the cat's tooth, right, the cat's claw, and the cat's fur. Right, that is our biggest problem, as people who love to keep cats. Right, so the cat's fur is also najis. Right, so the ruling here is that the fur cannot be on your body, or on your clothing, or on the place of worship. Right, if you're keeping it, because it's najis. It's not difficult actually. I have 2 cats, right, and my cats are long fur. One cat is a long haired cat lah. Right, the other one is a old balding cat. Right, but my it's actually not hard at all. I don't find it hard at all. Right, to keep your place of worship and your clothing and your body fur free. It's not hard. It's really not hard. Right. Basically, don't let the cat sit on that particular sejadah. Right. So the sejadah has no cat fur. Then your clothing that you wear, if you suspect there's fur on your clothing, change your clothing when you want to pray. Then change out. Right, so if you want to have a specific jubba, and I know of specific materials for jubba, whereby the fur will not stick. The fur does not stick on these materials. Right, so if you're walking around the house in socks, remove your socks when you want to pray. It's as easy as that. Right, remove your socks. If there's fur all over your socks, remove lah. Right, there's no issue. Right, so like the cloth that I like to use is my normal jubba cloth, which is I'm not sure what cloth it is, but it's a smooth kind. And the smooth kind, fur will not stick. Fur will not stick on those kind of smooth cloths. If cotton will be will be like a fur magnet. Right, so cotton will have fur everywhere on your cotton clothing. Right, so if you have a particular clothing that you wear for prayer, good enough. Right, have a particular clothing that you wear for prayer. Then your telekong also, don't have the cat sleep on your telekong. And right, give the cat some. Don't let the cat find its own place to sleep. And then you can even have an area in your house whereby you don't let the cat go there. But even then, you don't even have to have that, because as long as your sujadah has no fur, if it's just at the point whereby you're praying, the place whereby you're standing and doing sujud and sitting has no fur, then that's perfectly fine. Right. If the fur is not discernible, that's also fine. If the fur is less than 3 strands, that's also fine. Okay, these are all leeways, right? So the fur less than 3 is fine. The fur is not discernible. You can actually see the fur on the cloth. It's so thin, right? That's fine. What you don't know of is also fine. Right? So it's actually not hard at all, right, to hold on to this ruling about the cat. Right, yeah lah. I live my entire life I live with cats, right? So I don't actually find it difficult at all. It's only when you spoil the cat. Right, so when you spoil the cat and the cat wants to sit, whenever the cat wants to sit on your telekong, you allow the cat to sit on your telekong, which I do. I allow the cat to sit on my telekong when I'm in my telekong. Then I know in my mind I'm going to watch the telekong after this. Right, I'm not going to use it out for the next prayer. Once I've allowed the cat to come and sit on my telekong, I already mentally prepared myself that I'm going to change the telekong after this. Right, because it's going to be full of fur. It's impossible to kebas. You cannot. It's not possible for me to try and remove the fur unless I wash the telekong. Then it'll be free of fur. Right, so mashallah. Right, so this also I specifically like to choose certain materials for my telekong. Right, so like cotton confirm cat invested, cat fur invested. Cotton, you get this kind of smooth I don't know, polyester kind of material. Their fur will not stick. Okay, therefore will not stick, inshallah. Okay, so severed parts of an animal that is not halal to be eaten, including cat's fur, cat's claw. I'm mentioning cat's claw because my cat's claw gets stuck everywhere. So her the old one, my old cat, her claw tends to fall out. Right, so sometimes, yeah, kesian lah. She's so old. So she will walk, and then her claw gets hooked onto the cloth. Then she pull her hand, and the cloth jatuh. The cloth falls off. But it's not painful. It's just that she's old. Poor kitty. But I mentioned it because one of my friends, there was once I was teaching. Then I was about to get up to pray. Then I saw on the carpet. It was on the carpet already. I think her claw got stuck on the carpet, and when she walked and she pulled it, and it came off. So when I got up, I saw the claw on my telekung. I saw a cat's claw on my telekung. So I just remove it lah. Remove it and just turn it away. Flick it away. There's no need to wash because it's all dry. Her claw is dry, my telekung is dry, the whole thing is dry. All I have to do is flick it. That's all I have to do. Flick it. And I said, hey claw, flick it, and I flicked it lah. Then I said najis. And then she was like, I didn't know cat's claws are najis. Then I said, well, cat's fur is najis, right? You know that, right? And then she said, yeah, but you know claw is najis. And I said, what is the principle? The principle is severed parts of an animal that is not halal. That's the principle. Okay? So if someone's wearing a necklace with a crocodile tooth, they're carrying najis everywhere they go. I mean, it's kind of like, you go to Thailand, you can buy kind of like necklaces with crocodile teeth and whatever. Najis. There was once a man gave Habib Omar a tongkat, and the tongkat was made of ivory. And ivory is a tusk of elephants. Elephants are not halal, Elephants are not halal. So someone gave Habib Omar a tongkat, from ivory, the tusk of elephants. And Habib happened to be on a like ship, or a boat lah. He was on a boat. Ivory is for the tusk of elephants. Ivory is najis. It's najis. You cannot sell and buy najis. Right? So what did Habib Umar do? He threw the entire tongkat into the sea. Because you can't sell it. You can't do anything with it. It's najis. Super expensive, yes. It's incredibly expensive. But that will teach them to stop trading with ivory. Stop it, right? Elephants. I mean, stop killing the elephants. Right? So he threw it. He didn't care. He didn't care to sell it or to get the money out of it or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's najis. You can't even sell it because it's najis. You can't sell najis. Najis is not a sellable product. Right? It's not for sale. Right? It has no worth technically in Islam. There's no worth in najis. Right? So even though our society places very high worth on ivory, from the view of the Sharia, najis, right, throw into the sea. Right? He threw it into the sea. Right? Yeah. Also to teach people to stop the trade lah. Right? Stop the trade. Right. With regards to also fur of animals that are not inedible animals, all of these things, if the fur and the skin has been tanned, it has been tanned thoroughly, then it does remove the najasa. Right? If it has been tanned, if it's gone through processing, it has to go through processing. Right? Then the najasa can be removed if that was done. Right? If that was done. Right? So the best thing is to just avoid the whole thing. Right? Like don't keep like tiger skins or leopard whatever lah on the carpet, whatever. Just buy the synthetic fake ones. And then it's better for the animals also. Right? You can go and get the goat ones because goats are halal animals. The animals are halal for us to eat. So even if the goat was not slaughtered properly, right, the tanning process makes it non-najis, removes the najasa of the goat. Right? But it's good lah. It's good. Subhanallah. Okay. Okay, so that is for the najasa. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Are there any questions about this before I go on to the next part of the book? Let me see the chat. Doesn't it show any sign of distress when her claw comes off? No. I think it's memang dah it's already broken. She's old. It's an old cat. Right, so she we don't know when her claws come off. But we find her claws around in the house. Right, but it just, I think because she's very old, her claws and then it will grow back. So it's like a broken nail, I think. She shows no form of pain whatsoever when the claws come off. Maybe I think it's an old old cat behavior lah. She's 20 years old as a cat. Very old. Tua nenek cat. She's not, I don't know. My mother said macam panjang umur macam ni. But we don't know when, I mean, inshallah Allah give a long life, but 20 years old is way past cat expectancy. Cat expectancy is about 15 years old. So she was gone way past 5 years of cat expectancy. Allah give her long life. Allah give her long life. Alhamdulillah. Okay. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. This is a note. My mom is very, very strong believer that when you stop giving your cat processed food, they live long. We only give our cats fish. Actually, fish on the market. My mom actually, we will buy fish and then give them fish, so they don't eat processed food. Allah Alam, it keeps their fur healthy and keeps them healthy as well. Okay, Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Alright, so وَيَجِبُ عَلَى الْقَادِرِ أَنْ يُصَلِّي الْفَرْضَ قَائِمًا. Alright, so to have najis be next one, the previous slide. And it's wajib on the one who is able to stand for compulsory prayers, right? And this is and this is because so if someone, so it's from a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whereby he said sallallahu alaihi wasallam, qala sallallahu alaihi wasallam, صلى قائما فإن لم تستطيع فقاعدا فإن لم تستطيع فعلى جنبه رواه البخاري. So sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that if you cannot pray standing, then pray sitting down. If you can't pray sitting down, then pray lying down. Okay, I want to comment quite a bit on this part. Okay, so for the one who is able to stand, they must stand, and for all the parts of the prayer that you're able to do, you must do. And there are situations for this. Okay, so one situation is first example of an illness is someone is dizzy, okay, or too weak, unable to stand. Okay, that kind of situation, right? Too weak, dizzy, unable to stand for that reason. So the entire standing itself is not possible for this individual, right? Not possible at all for this individual. They can just sit and takbir and they can pray. Right, so their inability to stand is not because of pain in their limbs, right? But it's the whole body is unable to stand. Okay, the whole body is unable to stand, right? Or limp in the legs, whereby the legs cannot carry the weight of the body. Alright, so that kind of person completely unable to stand. Alright, so they can sit. If they're able to sit, they should sit and pray facing the Qibla. From the beginning of the prayer, the takbir, up to the end of the prayer, they remain seated. Right? If they're unable to sit facing the Qibla, then they lie down on their right. Okay, if they cannot sit facing the Qibla, then they lie down on their right. Their chest is towards the Qibla. Okay, the chest of the person, so lie on the right. I put a pillow if you want. Right, chest towards the Qibla. Okay, and then pray. Right, how do they pray sitting down? Because this is for the first person. I'm going to have different case scenarios. Right, so different case studies will include like those who can stand, but once go down cannot come up. Right, those kind of situations. Right, whereby once they go down to the ground, they're unable to stand back up to the standing. Right, but if they're from sitting position on a chair, they can stand. Right, but if they go down to the ground, they cannot go down. They cannot come up back. They cannot come back up. Right, or the one with the sprained ankle. Right, so I'll go into different situations. And then you will see how these things are done. So it's not a one-off rule. Right, but it is on the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whereby he said, "Whatever I have commanded you to do, then do of it the best that you can." Right, there is a qaida in fiqh. Right, that whatever you can do, you must do to the best that you can. Whatever you can do. Right, so the first situation, I'm going from the worst, right, to better and better and better lah. So the worst case scenario, someone physically unable to stand, and they cannot, for the life they cannot stand. Right, so if they can sit, they sit. So when they ruku', they bend a little bit, right, to the point whereby their head, if they can reach the level of the knee. They reach, not touch the knee style, but basically your head hovers over the knee. Okay, your head is hovering over your knee. Okay, if you can do that. If not, then as far as you can, right? But not so far, because the sujood must be further. Okay, the bending for sujood must be further than the bending for ruku'. Right, so for sujood, you're going to bend as far as you can. Right, so you're going to go and really fold your body as far as you can. That is for sujood. Ruku' will be lesser than that. Okay, lesser than that. So wherever you know is the furthest you can go, your ruku' will be lesser. That's for the one who is sitting, right? And I'm talking about the one who is unable to do anything at all. They cannot stand, they cannot sujood, they cannot get up, they cannot go down, they cannot do anything at all. They have to sit in their chair, and that's all they can do. Okay, I'm talking about this person, because there is a situation of the one who is able to sujood and able to sit. That one different person, Alright. Okay, if this person can't sit and they have to lie down, like for example, someone in who just finished operation, or very weak, or just very basically bedridden. If they can lie on their right, they need to lie on their right, their chest towards the qibla. If they can't lie on their right, but they can lie on their left. So for example, if someone has a severed arm, right, or some pain on the right arm, right, so you cannot put pressure on that part. So if they're unable, or maybe some hospital equipment, hooked up to them or wired up to them on the right, right? So they're unable to be on the side of the right. They can't lie on their right side, right? But they can do it on the left side. Maybe the injury is on the right, but not on the left, right? And maybe this injury also is on the legs and everything, so they can't get up, lah. Right, so you assume as someone who's maybe may Allah protect us, maybe someone whole right side is burnt. For example, if someone were to be burnt in the fire, right, and the whole right side is completely burnt, the hands, the legs, and everything, they cannot stand. They're unable to stand, and they're unable to be on their right. They can go on their left. All right. If someone can't go on their left, right, chest towards qibla. If they can't go on their left nor right, that means that they're so weak they have to be on their back. Right. Then they will be on their back, and their feet are towards the qibla. Okay, the feet are pointing towards the qibla. All right. And then if possible, the caregiver prop them up with a pillow, right? So if it's a hospital bed, then you can always incline it, right? But otherwise, prop them up with a pillow if it's possible, if it does not hurt them. If they have a lot of pains and whatsoever, they cannot be propped up, then basically the qaida is, the principle is, do the best that you can. Do the best that you can when it comes to prayer. So prop them up. Right. So similarly, we spoke about it in my other class that day, about the one who is the woman who is in labor. Right, the woman who is in labor. Right, if this woman in labor, she must pray, must still pray, right, because she is not in nifas until her womb is emptied out of every human form. Right, then you enter into nifas. There is no nifas while the baby is still there. Right? Even if there are a few babies, like if you have twins or triplets, right, you only enter into nifas after the third one comes out. Right? I mean, the womb has to be emptied of every human form, then you have come into nifas. If the womb is not emptied of the human form, right, so even if like a woman gives birth to one baby, then there's another one inside, twins, right? The blood that comes in between is not nifas. The blood that comes in between is under istihada. The ruling is istihada, right? So alhamdulillah, it is the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that many women give birth in the night. Alhamdulillah, right? Because they pray Isha. They pray Isha, then a lot of women give birth in the night. Because of they say because of the pull of the moon, Allahu Alam, right? The gravitational pull of the moon, it pulls on the fluids in the womb. Allahu Alam, but I spoke to one gynae once, and she was like, yeah, it is full moon is when they're busiest. Right? People all tend to go into labor during full moon, or before or prior to full moon. And then Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, 12 Rabiul Awal, right? So around the white nights of the Islamic calendar, that is the full moon nights, right? So if you're I know someone who's a dawla, right? She would always block out the full moon nights to not have anything going on those nights, right? Because she would get calls, like people all into labor, Right, so Allah Alam, eh? Right, so Alhamdulillah, I mean, I do feel that it is Allah's mercy, right? That He tends to let people give birth at night, like the habis Isha, then free, then to do and give birth, and then by the time you give birth, it's before subuh. It's before subuh you give birth, so you cannot have no prayer to think about, right? But if let's say someone were to go into labor right at Asar time, and by the time they give birth, it's Isha. So Maghrib, so probably they prayed Asar, right, and they go into labor at Asar time. So the whole of Maghrib, right, she has to pray. She has to pray Maghrib, right, to the best of ability. She should pray Maghrib, and if the baby has not come out and Isha has come in, then Isha also on her, and Maghrib and Isha both on her, to pray. So now there comes the question: how in the world is she going to pray? Like this, lie down, sit down, whatever you're able to. Whatever you're able to. And for all you know, that prayer will help you with your labor. You can go and pray 2 rakat hajat lagi. I mean, go and put in 2 rakat hajat. Ya Allah, with my labor, make my delivery easy. Dua lah. I mean, you're in wudu, you're in prayer. Then you're wondering, but if always blood coming out, then under the law of istihadah, your wudu is istibahata for the salah. Right? As simple as that. That's all. Like, wash yourself, remove the blood. More blood coming out is ma'fu anhu, is forgiven. Because it's your blood. It's your blood. It's forgiven. No issue whatsoever. Do your wudu, niyat istibaha for the salah. Sit down if you can sit. If you can't sit, then lie down. Whatever you're able to do. And then pray your 3 rakats. If you feel more energy, then pray 2 more. Right? I mean, make it easy for you. Right? So, but must pray, because you're not in nifas. It's a misconception amongst women that the blood that comes before birth, they think that's nifas. That's not nifas. It's called damu taliq, right? That is called the blood that is going to let go of the baby. The baby is about to be let go, right? So think about it. And when I was going through, my mom was like she was trying to think back, like, of her, because there are 7 of us. She was thinking back of the 7 of us, like, when did she stop praying for each birth, right? And then she was like, no, most of her kids she gave birth around 2 a.m., 3 a.m. And then she was like, the only person that gave birth at Zohor is you. She put it to me. You're the only one. You come out at Zohor. And everybody else come out at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. I'm the only one she has a qada. And I'm the one who told her she was qada. She has to qada her Zohor. I think 30 years later she qada her Zohor. But alhamdulillah, now you know you're supposed to have done the Zohor. The Zohor was on her actually. But she didn't do the Zohor lah. She gave birth around 1:30. So, I mean, baru masuk Zohor. Just Zohor. Then she gave birth 1:30. And so I told her, you can contact your Zohor. Okay. So you're unable. So this is for the one who is unable to stand up lah, right? Completely, eh? Okay. The lie down, right, just to blood. Continue writing them, Nabila. If unable on the right, on the left, unable on the left, and on the back. Right, on the back. And Islam, this is the thing. There is never a time whereby you don't pray, unless you're on nifas or unless you are on haid. Right? There is never a time in Islam whereby you don't pray. You pray, no matter what, and Allah has made it so easy for us. You can pray however you can pray. You pray, subhanallah. However you can pray, you pray. Okay, tamam. Okay, the next situation is someone who is someone who has a problem in their limbs. Okay, problem in their limbs, making it difficult for them to stand. Okay, second situation, problem in their limbs, having problems in their limbs. So whether it's the bone or the muscle or the joint. So it's not a physical. It's not the body is affected. No. The first situation is the whole body is affected. Right. Second situation, it's the joint. And the joint, which most people will face this. The joint or the muscle aching, a bone maybe sprained or fractured or whatsoever. Right, it's making it difficult to stand. Okay, or the backbone. The backbone is bent. Right, so one to stand also very difficult to straighten the backbone. Cannot straighten. So this person, if they can stand, they must stand. And they must stand for as long as they can. Right? Even if it's just for a takbir. Okay, they must stand for as long as they can. Alright? So if they say, okay, I can stand for a while, then I must sit. Okay. Alright, then do that. Then just do that. Right? If you say, I can stand for a few seconds, do my takbir, then I must sit. straight away after that. Okay, right? Perfectly fine. Right, so even for our all it's all for wajib prayers. For sunnah prayers, you want to sit through the entire time, sit lah. Right, for sunnah prayers, even if someone is completely healthy individual want to sit the whole time, sit. If you want to sit the whole time, up to you. Right, so they must stand as long as they can. Right, and when they cannot, they may sit. Right, when they cannot, they may sit. Okay, they may sit down. Okay, alright. Okay, if the okay, that one is for the one who is making it difficult. Okay, the next situation that is clear. Okay, next situation is someone having problem in their limbs, that is making it difficult for them to sujud. So they cannot go down to the ground. Usually, if you can stand, you can ruku. Usually, if you can stand, you can ruku. Right, and the minimum ruku' is very minimum, right? As long as your hands can touch your knees, your ruku' is sah. Your ruku' is valid. Your hands can touch your knees, your ruku' is valid, right? But if someone can't even do that, right? For example, like if they say that they have a problem in their neck, right? So a spine or neck whatever, they cannot bend forward, right? Without it being excruciatingly painful. Happened to me before. I cannot bend at all. Cannot bend. So they have to bend to the extent they can, to whatever it is that they can. Even if it's a tiny little bit, they need to just do that. Right, for the ruku'. Okay, so at every point in their limbs making it difficult to sujud. Right, sujud. So then they must stand. They must stand for Fatiha. They must stand for ruku'. Then only when they want to sujud, then they sit down and they sujud. Okay? So basically, what is the ruling here? Do the best you can. What the closest you can keep yourself to the original prayer form or the form of the prayer, that is what you do. And only when you cannot do some of the forms, then you don't do it. And then you find another way to do it. So when you want to sujud, you can sit down and sujud. Sit down on a chair. Okay, sit down on the chair, right? Because especially if it's they're unable to sujud lah. They're unable to sujud. Okay. Next, sit down on a chair. Sit down on a chair because it makes it. There's a difference between sitting down on the ground and sitting down on the chair. Okay, on a chair. All right, and sujud from there, and then from there get up. So when it's time to get up, they must get up from a chair and continue their prayer. So because it's only the sujud they can't actually do. Okay, only the sujud they can't actually do. Alright, so if someone is having problems, if someone is able to stand, able to ruku', able to sujud, but not able to stand back up after sujud, which many old people face, right? Once they go down, they need help from somebody to bring them back up. They cannot go from sitting position or from sujud position to standing again. Their thighs, their joints, all not strong enough to do that. Right, so they can do everything, but they cannot stand back up after sujud. So in this situation, they are allowed to sit on a chair and sujud from there. It means from the chair, because they cannot stand back up. Right, after that. Right, if they have no chair around with them, then they can sujud all the way. And when they sit up after sujud, so you can sit from a chair. If there's no chair around, in the musalla, look around, there's no chair, how am I going to pray? Right? So if there's no chair around, then they can go down to sujud, then they continue their prayer in that position. Right? It means on the ground. They continue their prayer on the ground because they're unable to stand back up. They cannot stand back up. Right? So they go down to sujud and they sit, iftirash, or however they can sit, then they sujud. And they can't get up after that. They just sit and they pray like that. And they pray like that because they cannot get back up. Okay, if there is no chair around, it happens like especially in poorer countries. There's no chair. Right, so we all very very fortunate in Singapore. Chair everywhere. Like in the masjid, all got chair. Right, but in other countries, it's possible that the musalla is just carpet. There's no chair at all. So if someone is unable to get up after sujud, and there's nowhere to sit, and then if you're going to make them stand the entire time in prayer, it's going to be difficult on them as well. Right? So they can go down and they can sit. They can pray from the point of sitting. Okay. I'll answer questions in a while. Let me just see. Allahumma sayyidina Muhammad. Okay, the last case scenario, right, is the one who is unable to sit back on their ankles, like the one with sprained ankles, the one who is unable to sit back on their ankles, on their legs, like means like iftirash, for example, like iftirash or tawarruk or something like apa sprain the ankle, right? Sprained the ankle. Okay, so this person sprain their ankle, right? So what can they do? What can they do is that, can they stand? Yes, they can stand. Don't put pressure on your sprained ankle lah. You can stand. Can they ruku'? Yes, they can actually ruku'. Can they sujud? Yes, with difficulty, but yes, can sujud still. Can they sit on their legs? Cannot, right? Because sprained ankle. All they have to do is extend their legs out and sit on their bottom. Okay, sah, right? Sah, it's valid. Extend your legs out. Don't sit on your ankle, and sit on your bottom, right? And then when you want to sujud, you sujud again. Okay, then now you say, okay, after I want to get back up. How am I going to get back up with my sprained ankle? Right? If have a support lah by the side. If you put a table by the side, or a chair by the side, or a tongkat, this kind of like old people tongkat, the 4 legs kind by the side, and you use your hands to push yourself up, right? Can what? Possible. Right? It's possible, depending on how old the person is lah. Like for me, whenever I sprain my ankle, that's how I'll pray. I will not compromise on the prayer. So I'll pray. Basically, the qaida is do to the best of your ability, and you be the judge on what is the best of your ability. Right? So for me, I will pray the full prayer, but I will extend my legs when I have to sit. I will extend it out, so I will not sit on my ankles. Right? But when I want to get up, then I will just use support. Right? So I sit near a chair or something, or a table. And I'll use a table as a support to push myself up. If I can't, because I'm gonna try and get up with pressure on one leg and not on the other leg, because a leg is sprained, right? So it's possible, like I've done it, and it's possible to do it. But then again, depending on your age, right? So if you're an old person with sprained ankle, then high chances you're gonna pray on a chair, right? But if you're a young person with sprained ankle, you can even get up without any support if you're so skillful in getting up. Right, from there. Okay, let's see any questions there. Let's see. Is labor not a situation where we're allowed to qada? Basically, when it comes to qada, right, whether you're allowed to or you're not allowed to, there are only 2 situations in Islam that not allow even. It's just that qada, you can understand that qada, it's not about allowed or not allowed. Qada is you miss the prayer, so therefore you pray later. That's the meaning of qada. And qada is you missed a prayer, therefore you pray it later. The question is, are you sinful? That's the question. Okay? So what is qada? You missed a prayer, so you're praying it later. That is qada. Right, so I can't say you're allowed or not allowed to qada. You must qada. You must qada prayers that you don't pray. Understand? The question is, you missing the prayer in the first place, sinful or not? That's the question. Okay? So in Islam, if you slept through the prayer, no one woke you up, and it was not your norm, not sinful. If you forgot the prayer, if you actually forgot to pray, right? Sincerely forgot, right? No one reminded you, not sinful. Okay? For the one in labor, right, if she really tried her best to want to pray, but it was too difficult for her to actually get the prayer. So that, for example, she came into labor at 6:55. Right, called the ambulance. Margaret was 7:10. Ambulance came, took her. Right, in the ambulance the entire time. By the time reached the hospital in the wheelchair whatsoever, 8 o'clock, Isha. Right, there was no possibility for her to actually perform Maghrib, right, because of already the sequence of events. Right, that Maghrib is on her neck. Yes, she has to pray Maghrib after she finishes nifas. So after giving birth, nifas, everything, she has a Maghrib from before. So she's like the woman who got her menses and she has not prayed Zuhur. She's like that woman, that woman. Zuhur was compulsory on her. She had not prayed Zuhur, and then she got her menses. Same story, right? As that woman, inshallah, no sin on her because she didn't mean to miss Maghrib. She didn't mean to miss Maghrib, but it was just that sequence of events, right? But of course, must qada. Of course, must qada. Right? So whether you're allowed to qada or not allowed to qada is not the question. The question is, qada is by default. Must qada. Right? The question is, dosa or not? Sinful or not? Okay. Another question is that, are there opinions that you can jama' on your wedding day? Seriously, no, you cannot jump on your wedding day. I got opinion, nonsense. Sorry, but really, honestly, it's nonsense. It is nonsense. There is no jama on the wedding day. You want barakah in your wedding, in your nikah, go and pray your prayers properly. Pray more than wajib. Pray sunas. Go and pray hajat. Go and pray taubat. Go and pray istikhara still. In case it's a not a good decision. How do you advise those who believe you can jama'? Those who believe you can jama', I mean, open any book of fiqh. Where do you find that on a wedding day you can jama'? Where? Where in the world, in any book of fiqh? If you want to speak about hukum is only by books of fiqh. Hukum is not by people say. People say it's not hukum. Doesn't become hukum when people say things. Right? Doesn't become hukum when people say things. Regardless of what people say. I know when I was growing up, people say, oh, can jama' watch movie? Oh, nonsense. Complete nonsense. Jama' watch movie, go and tengok, go and wayang, go and watch, go to the cinema, and then the movie is from 6 to 8, so jama' Maghrib to Isha. No, complete nonsense. It's not called jama', it's called qada, and it's called dosa. It's called sinful. And to do that is sinful. Right? So those who miss, so we're not saying jama', we're saying they miss their prayers. They miss their prayers. Right? It's not a jama', it is a missing of the prayer. If they jama' taqdeem, if they brought forward the later prayer to the earlier prayer, then they have not prayed the later prayer because it was not even valid in the first place. You can't bring it forward. Right? So if they say they have prayed Zuhur and Asar together, so they can have their wedding until Maghrib, you know what? They missed Asar. They actually missed Asar. They still have to pray Asar. Right? The Asar was not done. Okay, jama' can only be done in two situations, and there is one khilaf that says three. Okay, what are they? The first one that we all know is in travel. Alright, traveling. So as a valid traveler, you can jama' taqdeem, jama' ta'khir. Okay, the second one is in the case of rain in a masjid that is far from your house, and only jama' taqdeem, and the rain is so heavy it will prevent people from coming to the masjid for the second prayer, which hardly is the case in Singapore. Almost never has happened in Singapore. Okay, but in the past, in the time of Rasulullah, yes, they'll come for Zuhur, they'll pray super heavy rain, alright, to the point whereby it will lead to floods, right? So they pray Zuhur, the Imam will declare they're going to jama' Asar into Zuhur. So why? Because if they were to go home at this point, chances are they will not come back for Asar. For the Jama'ah, it's for the Jama'ah. Right? This is the importance of Jama'ah. Right? So they will pray Zuhur in Jama'ah, in congregation. Then the Imam will declare, okay, we're going to pray Asar. Right? So they're going to Jama' Asar into Zuhur. Right? Because of what? Because of congregation. Because if they were to go home in this kind of rain, they will not come back. So after they pray Asar, and the rain has to be continuous from the end of the Zuhur to the beginning of the Asar prayer. Continuous rain. Heavy continuous rain. And then they can all go home and not come back until like Maghrib if they want to. There's the second situation which hardly happens to anybody in Singapore. Very rare situation. Right? Because for us, you got car, you can drive back and forth. It's not a big problem. If you live in a desert, heavy rain is dangerous. When I was in Tarim, heavy rain is dangerous. Right? You have quicksand, literally quicksand. You cannot walk. If you stand on the sand, you will sink. It happened to me before. My shoe went in. Couldn't take it out. It got into the sand. The sand is like wet dough. Like you cannot move. You've experienced that. You know the hukum, why the hukum is like that. Right? And then sail. They have sail, which is basically a flash flood. Flash floods kill and destroy. So these are all real problems in desert climates when it comes to heavy rain. Um, the third situation, there is a khilaf among scholars, khilaf, and there is a mercy in that, is for the one who is sick, all right, for the one who is not well. Right, so for the one who is not well, if it's really, really, really torturous on the person, very difficult to take wudu and istinja and take wudu and listen and pray and everything, right? And it's very difficult on this individual. There are scholars who say, right? There are scholars who say that if he really has to, if he has to, then he may jama' the prayers together. Right? But then there are scholars who will say, no, don't do that, but pray Zohor at the end of the time, then pray Asr at the beginning of the time, so as to not be in the khilaf. Right, so it means you pray Zohor at 3:55, pray Zohor at that time, Asr comes in at 4:05, so 10 minutes wait, keep your wudu, then pray Asr at 4:05. That kind of thing that some scholars will say, but other scholars will say if it's really excruciating, it's really difficult on the ill person, then jama' Zohor to Asr, Maghrib to Isha. Right, that is the only three situations whereby jama' can happen. Right, so how do you advise them who believe they can jama'? Of course, I don't know how you want to speak to them, but you can say that that you have learnt in fiqh, and there's not a single book in fiqh that will say you're allowed to jama' your prayers because you are getting married. Right, in fact, the books will say go and pray properly, lah. Like, nikah takes a few seconds. We know that, and nikah takes a few seconds. Right? Walima is the sunnah of the walima is to feed the people, and not for you to spend your entire day on the pelamin, on the days, and then not pray Zuhur and Asar. Even worse, to miss Maghrib because of photo shoot. Even worse. There's not even a sunnah to do a photo shoot. It's good, like, you want to do, you can do lah. Right? It's permissible. Right, but you're gonna miss Maghrib because you're taking pictures. You're gonna miss Maghrib because you're taking pictures, and then you want to start off your marriage on a blessed foot. What blessed foot if you're gonna miss your prayers? La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. High priorities, mashallah. For a sick person, can they do only Jama' Ta'khir? No, they can actually do Jama' Taqdim on that opinion. But of course, it is safer to make them do Ta'khir. Safer, because if it's not valid, at least they have done a qada. You get what I'm saying, right? At least it will fall as a qada, if not a Jama'. Okay, so I hope you all are clear about that. But they can actually, on that opinion, it actually allows for Taqdim or Ta'khir. On that opinion, right? But I personally, if it's really possible to do the prayer at the end of the prayer time, wait 10 minutes, then pray the next prayer at the beginning of the prayer time, I would hold on to that opinion, because then you're free of any blame. Okay, you're free of any khilaf. If you can't do that, but if you really can't, or like somebody knows they're going for an operation. Right, and the operation starts at 3:30 p.m. and it will end around 7 p.m. A long operation, right? So the whole of Asar cannot be done. Right, the whole of Asar cannot be done. What the person can do is Jama' Taqdim the Asar, because they will be unconscious in the during the operation, right? And if they really want, after the operation, do a qada of the Asar just in case. Right, so make your prayer your priority, right? It is the most important thing in your life. It is the most important thing in your life. Drive this into the heads of ourselves and our children, and no matter what, the prayer is never left. Even if someone is in a coma, right? You takbir for you azan for the person, or you qamat for the person. You wudu you tell the person who's in the coma, in case they have consciousness. In case they have consciousness, you tell them, I'm doing wudu for you, right? So you can niyat. So in case they have they can think in their minds or in their hearts, they can just follow. Then you place them to face the qibla and you leave them be, right? In case they are praying in their heads, right? So prayer to the end of your life, salat, inshallah. Okay, any for today, inshallah. I think today got no time also to do the sunnahs. Inshallah next week we'll do the sunnahs. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة. أن الله يرزقنا منافعا وعملا خالصا عليم ودلالة على الهدى ويسر به قبل النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم وإلى أرواح معالمنا مشايخنا والذوي الحقوق علينا وإلى حضرة النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله.